Xiaomi's former sub-brand Poco has been diversifying its smartphone portfolio, and its latest offering is the Poco M3, a budget smartphone starting at Rs 10,999. The smartphone resides in the popular sub-15K price range and competes against the likes of the Redmi 9 Power and the Moto G Power. Hey, I'm Dhriti and welcome to Digit. Today we will be reviewing the Poco M3, the latest offering in Poco's M series and the successor to the popular Poco M2. The smartphone comes equipped with some appealing features such as a 6000 mAh battery, an FHD Plus display and dual stereo speakers. The phone, no doubt, seems pretty competent on paper. So let's find out how it fares in our review. Before we begin, remember to subscribe to the channel if you're new and hit the bell icon to never miss another update. First, let's look at the specs of the Poco M3. The smartphone is powered by the Qualcomm Snapdragon 662 SoC with an octa-core CPU with a max clock speed of 2.0 GHz. It also comes with the Qualcomm Adreno 610 GPU. This is paired with 6GB LPDDR4X RAM. You can choose between two storage variants, UFS 2.1 64GB variant or the UFS 2.2 128GB variant. You can also expand the memory up to 512GB via microSD card. The phone houses a massive 6000 mAh lithium-ion battery that supports 18-watt fast charging via USB-C cable. There's also support for up to 2.5-watt wired reverse charging. The phone has a triple rear camera setup with a 48MP primary lens, a 2MP macro shooter and a 2MP depth sensor. There's also an 8MP selfie camera. The Poco M3 has a 6.53-inch Full HD Plus display with a resolution of 2340 by 1080 pixels. For protection, the front glass employs Gorilla Glass 3 and there's a dewdrop shaped notch for the selfie camera. The phone runs MIUI 12 with Android 10 and the Poco launcher. The 64GB variant costs Rs 10,999 while the 128GB variant costs Rs 11,999. Let's delve into the build of the Poco M3. The smartphone comes with a striking textured back panel that feels premium in the hand even though it's plastic. The cameras are housed in a rectangular glossy black module that also has the Poco branding. The leather-like textured finish does well at keeping fingerprints at bay. However, we cannot say the same for the camera module. Poco has done extremely well with the design and we wish more phones, not just the budget ones, would adopt this sort of premium looking back finish. The cameras sit almost flush with the glossy black cutout, so there's minimal wobble when on a flat surface. The phone weighs 198 grams and the weight feels pretty well balanced. The rounded back and corners of the phone are pretty ergonomic, allowing users to grip and hold the phone comfortably. The phone comes in 3 color variants including Power Black, Cool Blue and Poco Yellow, which we have. Moving on to the ports and the buttons, the M3 houses the volume buttons and the power button on the right. The buttons have good feedback and work pretty well. The power button also houses a fingerprint sensor which is very reliable and quite speedy. On the left side, you have the SIM tray which houses 2 nano SIMs and a micro SD card. At the bottom, you have the USB-C charging port, a microphone and one of the 2 speakers. At the top, you have the second speaker of the dual stereo speaker setup, a 3.5mm jack and an IR blaster. It's great to see the inclusion of stereo speakers at this price point. The speakers are relatively loud, although the bottom one is definitely the one that's pulling most of the weight. They don't crack a lot even at max volume and the sound is pretty crisp overall. The screen is 6.53 inches and houses a dewdrop notch for the selfie camera. The bezels are pretty thick, but that is to be expected given the price of the phone. Inside the box, you get a silicone case for the phone, which is pretty convenient. There's also a 22.5 watt charging adapter, which is strange since the phone only supports 18 watt fast charging. The 6.53-inch display has a full HD Plus resolution, which is rather rare in this price segment. Most budget phones sport an HD Plus display at this price point. The IPS LCD display on the phone has vibrant colors that aren't the most accurate but do have decent viewing angles. The smartphone is plenty bright for indoors usage, and even in bright sunlight the display is readable. The M3 also comes with Widevine L1 certification, so you can stream HD content on OTT platforms. This combined with the stereo speakers makes for a device that provides plenty of immersiveness when watching content. However, the dewdrop notch is a tad distracting. Now let's move on to the performance of the POCO M3. The POCO M3 is powered by the Qualcomm Snapdragon 662 SoC, which is usually found in budget devices. You also get 6 GB of LPDDR4X RAM instead of 4 GB that's available in the global variant. In our benchmarking tests, the POCO M3's performance wasn't convincing. The device scored lower than both the Realme Narzo 20 and the Redmi 9 Power, albeit the 9 Power beat it by a hair's breadth. In the Geekbench 5 single-core test, the POCO M3 scored lower than the Narzo 20 and the Redmi 9 Power yet again. However, in the multi-core test, it did beat the Narzo 20 while still lagging behind the 9 Power. In PC Markwork 2.0, the M3 yet again was beaten by the Redmi 9 Power and even more convincingly by the Narzo 20. Moving on to GPU performance in benchmarks, the POCO M3 lagged behind the Redmi 9 Power and was obliterated by the Narzo 20 that scored almost 4 times as much as the M3 in GFX Bench's Aztec ruins. Benchmarks don't always tell the full story. In real-world usage, the POCO M3 rarely falters for its price point. The phone accomplishes multitasking much better than the Redmi 9 Power due to the extra 2 GB of RAM. There are few stutters and lags when scrolling through the screens and opening up different apps, but not as much as you'd expect for this price point. App opening time was decent for the most part too. It's safe to say that if you're using the phone to text, message, email, browse through social media and consume OTT content, the phone performs pretty well. In fact, the POCO M3 is also pretty decent for gaming. We played Call of Duty Mobile on the smartphone and the phone defaulted to high graphics and medium frame rate. Under these settings, we recorded an average FPS of 48 with 74% stability. If you drop the graphics down to medium from high, the numbers jump to 51 FPS with 94% stability, which is much better than the Redmi 9 Power's performance. The phone did get warm during our COD sessions and recorded a battery drop of about 4% in 15 minutes. The POCO M3 comes with MIUI 12 on top of Android 10 with the POCO launcher. While it is similar to MIUI on Xiaomi devices, the POCO M3 is supposed to be free of ads. We did not encounter any ads during our usage, much to our relief, since the Redmi 9 Power that we also reviewed was full of ads. Persistent and annoying ad notifications, which thankfully were completely absent here. What was present, however, was bloatware. The M3 comes with a fair number of pre-installed apps including GetApp, Netflix, LinkedIn, Facebook, some MI apps, and even a few games. Thankfully, most of these apps can be uninstalled. Overall, the UI is decent, a bit too cluttered for our liking, but that's MIUI for you. Next, we move on to the cameras of the POCO M3. The phone comes with a triple rear camera setup consisting of a 48MP primary lens, a 2MP macro lens, and a 2MP depth camera. There's a glaring omission here, which is an ultra-wide lens available in competitors such as the Realme Narzo 20 and the Redmi 9 Power. For selfies, you get an 8MP shooter. daylight photos taken from the main camera turned out pretty well. The dynamic range was alright, although the shadows lacked details for the most part. Turning HDR on definitely helps. The phone was able to extract more information from the shadows with HDR on. Close-up shots look good for the most part with some nice natural background blur, except the device struggles to lock focus. There's also a Pro Color mode that brings a pop of color to the pictures but looks cartoonish in some cases. The focus locking problem is heightened even more when using macro mode. It's extremely hard to get the camera to focus on the subject in macro mode, and even when you do, the shots from the 2MP lens are lackluster in quality. Portrait shots had pretty decent edge detection, however, the blur did look unnatural and choppy in some shots. Selfies taken on the 8MP camera are average. The camera softens the picture a tad too much for our liking though. Portrait selfies have good edge detection but suffer from the same softening effect. This is even more heightened in low-light selfies, and there's plenty of noise in most shots as well. Speaking of low light, the low light performance of the main camera is decent at best. There is plenty of noise in the shots and the phone struggles even more to lock focus. Night mode makes this slightly better, there's more detail and light in the images, but the focusing problems persist. For video recording, the phone tops out at 1080p for the main as well as the selfie shooter. Video quality is decent enough for the price, although there's no stabilization, so videos do suffer from shake, especially if you're walking or generally have a shaky hand. The Poco M3 also has the option for slow-mo recording at 720p at 120 fps. Coming to battery life, the massive 6000 mAh cell in the Poco M3 performs admirably. Even with moderate to heavy usage consisting of watching shows, browsing social media, using GPS and the usual texting and calling, the phone manages to power through at least a day and a half of usage. If you're a light user, there's no doubt that you can even go 2 days or longer without needing to charge the device. In our tests, half an hour of streaming Netflix content in HD drained the battery by about 6%, and 1 hour of GPS navigation took it down by 6% as well. The phone supports 18-watt fast charging and can be charged from 0 to full in 2 hours and 50 minutes. This is pretty slow, but it's acceptable for a 6000 mAh battery. The Poco M3 is more than just its premium looks. It offers much more for an affordable price point, including an excellent battery life, decent performance, 6GB of RAM, a crisp FHD Plus display and dual stereo speakers. The phone even does away with the persistent ads that are usually prevalent on devices with MIUI. The camera quality is mediocre at best, but we can't really ask for more at this price point. Although, we do wish the Poco had included an ultra-wide lens. All in all, the Poco M3 is a great option to consider under 15K, especially for users that are looking for a smartphone that can keep them away from the charger for as long as possible. With that being said, we are done with this review. Thank you so much for watching the video.